Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to thank everybody for coming to NCLUG and DOT's presentation today from the Environmental Analysis Unit as part of the NCDOT OpenX Rollout Week. I'm Brian Lambeth. I'll be serving as the NCLUG moderator for this session. And if you have any questions or issues, you can put them in the chat and I'll try to answer them during the presentation. This is a presentation, so we'd like to make sure that everybody's muted during the call, and please raise your hand or submit questions, and then once the presentation's over, we'll move through those in the order they came in. If at any time there's an issue, we found best to be able to just log out of the session and log back in if your screen freezes or if you're not hearing any sound. That seems to be the easiest way to correct that. And then NCLUG will be recording this and it will be posted on the website. So if you have to leave soon or if you can't get a good connection and miss any part of it, don't worry, there will be a recording that you can look at then. And NCLUG will be providing PDHs for those that are registered, and anyone that attended the live meeting will get credit from NCLUG after the presentation. And now I'd like to introduce Dave Johnson with NCDOT EAU to walk us through what their expectations and plans are for as we move forward with open roads. And Dave, I'll turn it over to you. And if you have any technical difficulties or anything, let me know and I'll help you as best I can.
All right, great. I appreciate that. Yes, I'm Dave Johnson, and welcome and good afternoon, folks. You've joined the NCDOT Open Roads Designer Migration Update for the Environmental Analysis Unit. As I said, I'm Dave Johnson. I'm Engineer 1 in the Environmental Analysis Unit. I work for our Monitoring and Stewardship Group. I'll give you a little introduction to that in a little bit. First off, I'd like to say that I was surprised that we had 92 folks sign up for this. Interesting that we had that much interest, but this will be pretty short and sweet today. It is not going to be as in-depth as probably what you've seen with some of our other bigger design disciplines. So I'll say that I'm the EAU CAD coordinator and took this position a couple years ago. And I tell you what, it was not as complex of a job in the past decade or so, because we were kind of smooth sailing with V8. Our processes were in place. So I've had some challenges. My background is in GIS primarily, so I'm learning a lot as we go on with this CAD tools and processes during this transition. I'm also joined today with Jeff Garland, the NCDOT ORD implementation manager. I'm sure he needs no introduction at this point. Also, Vasim Baradwala from the Roadway Design Unit, and Ethan Schwartz, our embedded Bentley ORD experts. Those guys are here to help answer some questions if there's anything beyond what I can pull up or answer for you. So moving on, give you a little bit of information about the Environmental Analysis Unit. We're a pretty diverse group. We provide a variety of products to support project development. We were formerly split into two sections, of natural and human environment, several years ago. And while on paper we're really not organized as such, we sort of have two groups of products that come out of EAU, falling into those two broad categories. So you have our environmental coordination and permitting group, also called the ECAP group, biological surveys, mitigation and modeling group, and the monitoring and stewardship group have a focus on our natural environment aspects, project development. Excuse me. While on the human environment side, we have our cultural resources group, traffic noise and air quality group, and our PICS Viz group, which is involved with public involvement, community studies, and also 3D visualizations of some certain projects. So at the end of the day, CAD products are kind of all part of our work effort, but manifested in different ways. So let me tell you about some of our elements, or specific CAD products that are coming out of the EAU, and sort of who's responsible for those. I want everyone to understand that EAU doesn't produce the classic full plan set like you would see out of roadway or structures. We're doing more as a functioning more in a supporting role to provide various elements from our disciplines within the EAU, and some of those manifest on final tip plans. In some cases, we're just using MicroStation Connect ORD just for in-house work. So first, I'll tell you about environmental study areas is an element that sort of used to come out of the EAU, and it made most sense as we migrated over to our MicroStation Connect ORD workspace to bring that stuff in, to bring that level into the EAU component of the workspace. And but those data, the environmental study areas, are going to be provided by our central and division PMs. And I imagine some of y'all have understood enough about how we're approaching the workspace concept now, is that everybody's going to be under one big umbrella workspace. We're not going to have separate individual workspaces for separate disciplines. So we've got the environmental study area boundaries in there, and as their name implies, those boundaries define limits of study for environmental features, and goes into the project development process. Probably the most familiar product to many of our PEFs would be the jurisdictional stream and wetland features, sometimes referred to WEX or wet files, and those terms are just basically just DGN references. WEX is being for like unapproved delineations, and wet files for final delineations. Those initially are collected in the field using GPS equipment, and then later in the project development process, they're finalized using survey equipment, and both end up being converted to CAD product for use in project development. Ultimately, these are one of the few products that we have that are included in the normal tip plans. You'll see these on there. Next, we have threatened and endangered species, boundaries, or populations that may be identified through the biological surveys group. Their work, they're also collected and used in the project development process, sometimes because they're sort of sensitive in nature. Specific details may not be included on plans, but could be used in our permitting efforts to offset impacts to those populations, and we have to know where they are. Next, talk to you about noise walls, which comes from our traffic noise and air quality group, surprisingly, or unsurprisingly. Those are designed within the EAU, and ultimately do appear on tip plans when they're part of a project. And while the modeling is mostly conducted in GIS software, this final noise wall locations, maybe some other stuff, appear on the tip plans, and are constructed in conjunction with the roadway projects. See, I'm scrolling down here. Okay, so next we'll talk about historic architecture and archaeological features. Those also sometimes they have sensitive nature. Sometimes, especially with the archaeological stuff, they generally may not show up on final tip plans, but we may see what are called areas of potential effect depicted on plans. So we made provision for that in our workspace levels and element templates if they're needed. Next, for on-site mitigation efforts, which is my group, I said I'd tell you a little bit more about that. Our group leads the implementation of mitigation plans that are done in-house by the DOT. These are usually stream or wetland restoration projects that are adjacent to right-of-way. Monitoring and stewardship group, my group, are responsible for producing these plans. But I'll tell you, over the last few years, most of them have been done, by PEFs outside of the DOT. So these are often complete plans to themselves and require a full suite of design elements within a workspace, whether it's ours or PEF. And I think, to quote, we have somewhere around 230 levels that were used in the V8 era that we're sort of looking at, what we need to migrate over. Can we do away with some of that? I think in some talks we've had with the CAD services group and others that some of it may be a little unnecessary now with new functionality that comes along with ORD. Like I said, much of that design has been done by PEFs over the last few years, but as the department moves towards 3D design, those elements are going to grow in complexity to meet those needs. And that'll be sort of led by our other, design intense disciplines. Let's see. Finally, I want to tell you about our PICS-Viz group, was what we call them, which stands for Public Involvement, Community Studies, and Visualization. This element of EAU are really primarily consumers of CAD products from across the department. They conduct public involvement meetings and hearings. They perform community studies, and the visualization group, creates 3D visualizations. I think mostly in AutoCAD is what they use, but of course they need tip project data in order to create those. So, like I said, while this group doesn't really produce a lot of CAD elements, we made provision in the workspace and in ProjectWise to support those work efforts. So that's some of the elements we have coming out of our unit. Like I said, we're not necessarily, with the exception of wetland and stream mitigation designs, we're not really producing a whole plan book. And right now, we really have just a 2D focus, just to get everything migrated over from our V8 workspace and get it reorganized. It was sort of unattended to for a few years, so I've been trying to get that back under control. But like I said a minute ago, as the department begins to fully engage with 3D design and modeling using ORD, our workspace is certainly going to have to grow, and those elements are going to have to get a little more complex. And we're certainly going to be working with the more intense design disciplines to make sure that the EAU workspace is up to par and can function well with the rest of the department's efforts on that. Unfortunately, we don't really have a lot of shiny designs and visuals to show off here today. I mean, I could have shown you a few lines on a black screen that said this is a wetland, but I imagine roadway or maybe structure presentations were a little more interesting with that kind of stuff. But just to catch you up on our current efforts, like I said, we're working on the 2D stuff, getting it organized. We're implementing new updated standards from the CAD services group. Right now that's like level naming conventions and making sure our element template names are consistent, and that goes along consistency through the whole department. We'll certainly be digging deeper into feature definitions, item types, that sort of thing as we move forward. We're also developing updated procedures for ORD. I'll give you an example of one of those here in just a second. Whoops, I hit skip too far ahead. So, something I wanted to mention is that EAU has a need for GIS integration, and I have a GIS background, and I'll tell you, over my time with the department, I've seen its acceptance and use grow by quite a bit. and I don't think that's really slowing down anytime soon. Not to say that EAU is special beyond any of our other disciplines. I'm sure that they're also thinking about how to integrate with GIS. But for us, we have some specific tasks where things are going to have to move in and out of GIS. So it's probably easy to lump CAD and GIS together sometimes, but honestly, they're different in a lot of ways. And even though we depict them spatially, their architecture is quite different, and that's a little bit challenging. We're finding out to really go between. I think we're probably not alone when we see that. But as I said in the previous slide, I'll tell you about one of our procedures that we have, and I think he's on the call today. I won't name his name, but recently I was talking to one of our consultants in a firm that I work closely with, and he said he was interested to see what we were going to do in producing our WEX and WET files in ORD, and it's a good question. For the industry folks here today, so some firms probably helped us with those wetland stream delineations in the past. With V8, we had a process worked out for those WEX and WET DGN files to come from Trimble GPS. I think they were called Geo Explorers, and working through a GeoPack routine, we're able to import those points, add a level line to them, and then get them annotated appropriately and move them all down the line. So folks in the other disciplines could make use of them. And right now we're just beginning discussions on how to make this work best for us in the ORD environment. I looked at it, or we looked at it earlier on, and if pressed, we could certainly make a WET file right now through some manual effort in ORD. But excuse me. But when we get to really large, complex delineations, we're realizing some level of automation is going to be necessary to efficiently produce those files. And compounding that is the fact that EAU has moved away from using the Geo Explorer and Pathfinder GPS technology to new Trimble R1s and ArcGIS collector-based technology. So if you think about that, we're going to be collecting data in a GIS format, converting it into CAD, and then in some cases going back into CAD or back into GIS. So unfortunately, as we were beginning to train up the unit on that and work out some of the details and expectations for accuracy and things, and then the pandemic came and delayed us on developing new field procedures. So we had purchased a handful of field tablet PCs to be used out for those data collection efforts, and they ended up having to go home with folks for, what is it now, 15 months to support teleworking. So we're migrating back to the office here soon, willfully or not. And we're going to be starting to get on this and working out this process for bringing in that data cleanly and consistently. So that's something to come. I also wanted to mention our need for GIS integration with Project Atlas. Some of y'all are probably familiar with Project Atlas. It stands for Advancing Transportation Through Linkages, Automation, and Screening. The Atlas program is a GIS tool primarily, and requires data to be filed, entered in there in a certain format. So we're working on right now some ideas of how to convert, like, say, our study areas and our WET files, other things, maybe T&E data as it needs to be imported, and all pushing that into Atlas as a GIS format. So some of our processes, certainly from the past with functionality that's available in ORD, we'll probably be, working out some brand new stuff for that. Getting close to the end here. just as course as we move forward, we're going to need our input from you, the PEFs, and so for those listening today who work with us or who have had involvement with our various elements, not just the wet files, but other things, I encourage you to reach out to me or folks in the unit that you work with. We can get you a copy of our Connect workspace. It's fairly bare bones at the moment, but things will be increasing in complexity, and get you guys starting to familiarize yourselves with it. We certainly appreciate any feedback you have. It's definitely going to take coordination between us to make it all work. And I think that's a common theme across all our disciplines in the department and our PEFs. So just to kind of start wrapping it up here, NCDOT ORD external coordination, of course, is sort of a repeat of my last slide. It was one Jeff had for us. I want to make sure folks get that link there if they haven't seen that, and some of the other presentations from NC Lug this week. So you can get to our ORD webpage with that link. And then finally, hopefully that catches y'all up to where EAU is. I know it's not bright and shiny like some of our other groups, but this is where we are and where we're going. And, clearly we have some work ahead of us. Things are beginning to move along pretty quickly. So with that, I thank you for listening today and your time, and I'll open it up for questions from the attendees. I'll switch back over to Teams and see what I've missed.
We don't have any chat questions at the moment, but if anybody has any questions, it's like Dean Sarvis has a question just now, and he's asking about will the wetland and TCE and historic architecture surveys, as well as noise walls, now need to be in a 3D file?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I think the easy answer to that is yes. I think it will be. Maybe not immediately, but like I said, the department's processes across the board are evolving, and we're sort of a smaller fish in that big design pond. So as the department gets moving forward on it, we'll certainly be keeping up with that. I don't see how we'll be able to really avoid that. I don't know if that really 100% answers it, but yes, we're certainly going that way. Dean, thank you for the question. Anything else from anyone? I see a thumbs up. He liked that. Okay, good.
I guess, is there a deadline on your end of when you're hoping to push out a lot of these changes?
Well, we sort of have so I could back up, maybe go back to my slides. In my mind, we've got a primary group, and I've sort of introduced you to most of that here on this screen. Those primary, let's say those first 5 bullet points are really the stuff I focused on right now. And really for a 2D aspect, they're pretty much good to go. We may need to flesh out, feature definitions and things like that. And some of that's going to roll into the 3D aspects, but that's kind of good to go right now. I think, maybe some tweaks as we move forward with some of the other CAD standards that are being implemented. For wetland and stream mitigation design stuff, we are just starting to sort of open that Pandora's box. There's a lot to it. And, we've had, like I said, we've had some folks involved with that we've used regularly to do wetland and stream mitigation designs. I'm planning on reaching out to them and talking to them a little bit about what they've been using and, what's been working for them, and, we probably will not all of a sudden stop doing the designs out of the house. They'll probably still be, contracted out. So we'll be working pretty close with them on those. And that, like I said, that's the next priority, is getting that that going. Thanks for your question. I don't know if Jeff or Vaseem or Ethan wants to add anything. They're welcome to chime in. I see a comment from Jeff, so appreciate that, Jeff.
Yeah, I'm just saying, great job, David. Really appreciate all you and the EAU team are doing. It's a lot, so thank you. But it looks great.
Yeah, like I said, I know it's not as bright and shiny as some of the other stuff going on, and really we're looking forward to getting sort of worked into all that. But there's just some bigger pieces that have to fall into place, I think, for the department before we really get tuned into all that. So, any more questions, comments? Yeah, I think y'all can get my email address or anything like that. Y'all probably find a way to get in touch with me if you got any other questions or follow-ups. I'll be happy to talk to you on a one-on-one or sidebar. With that, I don't know if there's anything else. I guess we could probably wrap it up.
All right. Well, then, David, we appreciate you taking the time to walk through this today. And like we were saying earlier, this will be on NCLUG's website if anybody wants to see it or forward it on to anybody else. And then DOT's asked that if you do have any ideas or anything that you think needs to be addressed in the future, you can send them an email at the email link I just put in the chat. And other than that, thank everybody for attending and wish you all a good rest of the day. Thanks, David.
Good. Thanks, y'all. Take care.
Thank you, everyone.